Welcome to another episode of What is a Doctor of Ministry program. Hi, I'm Kelly Matthews, and I have with me today Cynthia Hester. Thanks for being here, Cynthia.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Kelly.
This is great. So, in the previous episodes, you have probably seen me talking with some of my own classmates. Not all of them, of course, but today Cynthia comes to us from a different school. I have a little bit of history with that school as well, but not at the doctoral level. So tell us a little bit about not only where you studied, but kind of what got you there, what got you to a doctoral program. Just give us a little bit of background on you.
Sure. So, the impetus for going to seminary, which I did in my 50s, was I was working on staff at a pretty good sized Bible church. I was the pastor to women, but I was called the women's ministry coordinator because in my world, women are not pastors, men are, and men are the leaders in the home. And I understood all of that. But in those 3.5 years, as I was the only pastoral minister to women, but not in any of the pastoral meetings of multiple, male pastors and all that. And there were some significant decisions being made that affected women, mothers, wives, working women, the children of the family, all that. And so I kind of had to go sideways to have some input. And so I started to question, is it because I'm a woman? Like, really? And so I decided I needed to know what God believes about women. And because I started to distrust what I'd been told. And so that was a little bit later, but originally I started seminary because I wanted to do my job better. I wanted to pastor women better and understand more about, because I was asked to do all the things, counseling and hospital visits and, just, and so
the shepherding kind of stuff.
That's right. That's right. As well as all the leadership, we had vision casting. We had 3 Bible studies going on simultaneously, multiple events, this and that. It was a very robust ministry, exciting, great team, all the things. So then, some really, it's a whole part of my story, and I've shared it before, but ungodly things happening. And ultimately they decided a woman couldn't teach the Bible on a Sunday morning because they didn't want to set a precedent. And that for me was a deal breaker. That was actually felt like somebody had struck me in the heart, like I can't minister to women with that I know that's wrong,
Okay, right.
So I was in seminary at the time. And
when you say seminary, you mean master's level?
Master's level. So yes, so I'm a researcher, but I didn't research where to go to seminary, which is really interesting. It was a God thing. So our lead pastor at that same church sent us all an email, and he said, hey, Dr. Bailey, who was the president of Dallas Theological Seminary at the time, he's coming to Fort Worth. So I live west of Fort Worth. He's coming to Fort Worth to a big church there to teach Bible study methods and hermeneutics on Monday nights. And it was my favorite course, so formational. And so if you can take it, you should try. And so I'm up for the challenge. I'm like, well, I wonder if I'd get accepted, and so who knew my GPA from so long ago would help me skip the whole that exam you have to take and all that.
Oh, wow. Well done.
Yeah. So I got accepted, took that course, and I was hooked. But then it was later, as I was beginning to have all these questions and this ungodly stuff happens, that I actually resigned my job at that point when the pastor said it was a unanimous decision of all the pastors that a woman couldn't teach on a Sunday morning. And so I enrolled in Sandra Glon's course, which is the Biblical, Theological, and Historical Foundations for Women in Ministry Leadership. Now, there's not a male course, correspondent to that, because men don't have to justify their ministry.
Correct.
But
now, again, you're still at the master's level, or had you already graduated?
I was still at the master's level. Okay. So that was the first seed planted. Okay. What is going on in the church? Is it because I'm a woman? The second seed was we had a guest speaker come. He was a professor there at Dallas Seminary at the time. and also an associate pastor at a local Dallas-based church. And he shared with us that he had gotten 2 advanced theology degrees, the theology degree you have, the Master's of
Mhm.
Theology at Dallas Seminary, and then he'd gone on to Wheaton and gotten his PhD in theology. And it was not until he came back was finished with school and his church leadership decided to study what the Bible says about women, that he studied what the Bible said about
Mhm.
women. And
Right.
it was an aha moment for me. It was like, okay, the male pastors in the evangelical world are the gatekeepers for what women can do at their spiritual gifts and calling.
Mhm.
And here is a man who has 2 advanced theology degrees, is working in the academy and in the church, and he had never looked at what the Bible said about women. What in the world, And so that what I didn't know is God had planted a seed that just continued to grow. And so
Okay.
so I graduated with my master's in Christian ministry leadership.
Okay.
And 6 months later, I called Sandra Glahn and I'm like, all right, there's just burning fire in me. I want to create this educational tool for
Okay.
those who aren't going to go to Bible college, won't go to seminary. That's not going to be part of their life, but they want a place, a safe space to ask these questions that I had started to have, that they
Okay.
don't feel safe enough in their own church, possibly to ask. They don't want to be a Joan of Arc. They don't want to rock the boat, all these things. And so that was my educational tool that I created through that was my reason for getting my doctor of ministry. What I didn't know at the time is that was God birthing a ministry. It is my anchor piece
Mhm.
of my ministry now.
Okay, so master's questions, you graduate, you still have questions and a passion. So instead of just creating a course, you decided to roll that into a doctor of ministry program and make it your project. Is that right?
That's right, because I wanted to be shepherded and
Mhm.
guided by 2 women who've done deep dives in that, Sandra
Okay.
Glahn being the primary one, and also Sue Edwards.
I know Sue. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
For the rest of you out there, Sue and I, have co-authored a bunch of books together for the last 20 plus years. So she
yeah,
is a professor at Dallas Seminary now and, has been for quite a while. She's emerita now,
right.
teaching as if she just because she wants to, not because she has to anymore.
That's
Uh,
right, that's
she
right.
just can't
So
quit. So, yeah, we love her, and she's been a mentor to many of the students who've come through.
right. So
Yeah.
I ended up being a TA in Sandra Glan's course. I wanted to take it
Mhm.
again, just immerse myself, and she's like,
Mhm.
"Come be my TA." And then I, of course, took at the doctoral level, I took Sue Edwards' course, similar to Sandy's, not quite as in depth, but still very helpful. And then I've also lectured in that course now since I've gotten my doctorate, and
Okay.
also spoken in Glan's class, about my
Okay.
experience there. So, to
Okay, great.
yeah, and to my knowledge, it's still unique. There wasn't anything like that on the market when I created it.
Mhm.
And now there are courses, but they come from a particular perspective. They come from the
Sure.
complementary side or the egalitarian side, whereas
Mhm.
the uniqueness of Theology of Women Academy is what I called it and trademarked it. And it's 5 years old. My baby's 5 years old now.
Yes.
So, I open enrollment twice a year. But the reason that it's unique is it teaches the spectrum of views. So I give the educational building blocks, and I don't teach my view. And I'm very passionate
Mhm.
about what I believe, but I don't teach that. And in my testing, so I had a mixed testing. Um, anyway, the focus group at the end, which Dr. Edwards and another professor ran for me, said that they couldn't tell what my view was. That I had done a great job of presenting both and helping them sift both. And so that was a God thing, because that's the purpose of the
Mhm.
course,
Right.
is
Good, okay.
not to point in one direction, but for the person who takes the course, male or female, and I've
Mhm.
had both across the world, students from across the world, they are able to form their own view at the end and feel grounded in it. And so,
Good, okay. So you have already, probably because you were already moving in that direction, I would think, created something, moved into the area of ministry that you entered that program for.
Yes.
So going back to your experience in the program,
Mhm.
what were some of your favorite parts about being in, what was it, 3, 4 years? 2? How long was
Oh,
it?
yeah, I took 4 years, to finish it,
Okay.
and part of that was because I delayed for 6 months to take a course about how to create an online course because COVID happened and
Oh, okay.
I couldn't test it live, and so plan B was to put it online, and that had to become plan A, and again, I think that was a God thing, but, yeah, so I had because I did all my own curriculum writing, editing, filming, and then
Mhm.
picked a course platform, built that, and so that all took about a year, aside
COVID and
from
yeah,
as
COVID interrupted a lot, but it
right.
also rearranged,
Yes.
platforms and yeah, so yeah.
Right. It was a good thing. And so the other reason that I went to Dallas Theological Seminary was well, I mentioned, the expertise of Sandra Glunn and Sue Edwards, but there was literally no other program there was no program in the United States that combined women leadership and theology until I was about to graduate and then Northern Seminary rolled
Yeah,
out their program. So I
yeah,
was cheering, and of course that's a whole nother story, but
yeah.
but
Okay,
I anyway, the second reason is they allowed a customized doctorate at Dallas Seminary.
okay.
And so that enabled me with expertise to put together actual courses that were available, but then also independent studies. So I got to go to immersive study in Italy with Sandra
Mhm.
Glahn. I went with Dr. Dan Wallace with his Center for the Study of New Testament
Yeah.
Manuscripts. We went to Greece, and I told him, specifically, I was studying women in leadership. Came back and did a lecture about having gone to Cenchreae and Corinth, ancient Corinth, and seen where Phoebe walked and Priscilla and
Okay.
ministered and things like that. And so just that ability to put together a program that would work towards my goal was instrumental.
Okay, so some doctors of ministry, it all depends on the school, will have a set curriculum.
Right.
Some will show some flexibility.
Mhm.
So, like where I was at Houston Christian, the courses were set, but within each course, we were encouraged, not just allowed, but to take our major paper that we had to write and make sure it somehow fit. It had to relate to the course, but it had to more importantly fit into our dissertation as best we could. So when I was writing about Mary, we there was one course, it was all about the Gospel of Matthew. You're like, okay, Matthew. And but because there are some of the birth narratives in Matthew
Mhm.
where Mary shows up, that's where I
Mhm.
focus, that sort of thing. So each person came with a completely different angle,
Sure.
having taken that course. So every program is going to have its differences, and but the goal is to be able to put together something where your emphasis of whatever it is you're looking to do,
Mhm.
they can work with that and not just force you into their box.
That's
So
right. And I had fellow students who knew what they wanted to, accomplish, and then others that, um, weren't sure, and so but they
mhm,
knew they were supposed to be sifting
mhm.
and continuing on, so
Yeah, same here. Yeah, some of us walked in and thought, I don't know, what my big project's going to be. I just know I'm supposed to be here. Yeah. Ah, you froze for a second. You're back. Okay. Okay. So I'm thinking through some of my questions for you. Was that your favorite part? Was the idea that it was so flexible and you were able to work it? Did you work with a cohort?
no, so I was on my own, and I would say, DTS is, in the exit interview, they're like, "What is the weakness of this program?" And for me, that was tough. I went from having all of this interaction with professors and students and all that, and I live very far from Dallas, and
Hmm.
so it wasn't like I could, "Let's have coffee," kind of
Yeah.
thing, and so, yeah, that isolation was challenging, and yet at the same time, there were so many ways and so many people that helped me. I actually wanted to, I wrote down, like, I'm going to write down all the people who intersected me and
Mhm.
given me a support or encouragement, or I set up a prayer team, and I
Mhm.
had a page full of names. I wasn't alone. God was
Right.
providing me
Mhm.
what I needed, but it did feel that way. I think probably one of the most challenging parts of it was the comments that I would get. When they would hear when I would share with fellow students in this one particular course where we're learning about how to write a dissertation, right? So I had the whole writing the dissertation in addition to the whole creating and launching the
Yeah.
course, which was
Yes.
was a full plate. But one comment was, well, perhaps you should just pick one woman in the Bible and write about her, which is a great idea. I love, like, I want to read your dissertation about Mary, and you've done some groundbreaking work there just from the articles I've already read and gotten to share. But that was not my calling, right?
Right.
And then another one was one of my classmates, my male classmate. They, well, I want to, what, before you talk about your project, we want to know, are you complementarian or egalitarian? And I said, that's not really material to my
Ex
project.
And that surprises people, right? They assume one thing.
Right.
If you wanna talk about women in leadership, I think most people go, "Oh, well, you just wanna see what you wanna see in the text."
Right. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I also had one professor who told me, "I think you should put your husband's name on that well, would he allow that? I think you should put," and another student said, "I think you should have a male teach the course with you," you know.
Well, those are
Um,
giveaways.
so
They're tipping their hand there.
yeah, so along with all the support, there
Mhm.
there was definitely the fiery arrows,
Yeah.
when you're doing a work
Mhm.
that the enemy doesn't want to come across, well, that's gonna happen too. So
Yeah. Mm. I think part of that is the environment you're in, the topic you're studying, and the fact that you're a woman. So all
right.
of those combined. So how long has it been since you graduated?
I graduated in 2022, end of
Okay.
2022. Yeah, so
Okay.
just a few years.
Yeah. No. 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 You're far beyond me. I'm so brand new at this. So I want to tell everyone that the book 40 Questions About Women in Ministry,
Mhm,
which Dr. Sue Edwards and I co-authored, Cynthia wrote the 3 chapters on women in church history,
mhm.
so you can get a wonderful, example of her writing and her research, right in the middle of that book, so go check that out. You really added a lot to the
Thank
book,
you.
so we are very grateful for that.
Thank you.
Uh,
I actually had a quote I wanted to share with you
okay.
about history.
Mhm.
It was written in a book by Jeanette Hassey. So she's a historian, and she wrote "No Time for Silence: Evangelical Women in Public Ministry Around the Turn of the Century." And she said that the recent debate in evangelical circles, is a quote, over women's public ministry tends to focus on biblical and theological issues without grappling with the historical questions. Asking what women and men have done in church history in an earlier age and why can make that theological discussion more historically informed. And so that's where my writing is focused. There's plenty of scholars with more Greek and Hebrew than I have, and so yes,
Mhm.
I dive into those topics, the theology, obviously, and the biblical part. But I really love asking questions about women in history. That's the name of my newsletter, Querying Questions.
Yes.
Each newsletter is one question about women in the
Mhm.
church, and I really love to focus on the historical piece because it surprises people. We don't
Mhm.
we don't know that women have been doing all the spiritual gifts. In the Bible, you see evidence of that, and
Right.
across history. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that history
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah, you're speaking my language, right? That was what I did, history major, theology master's, and then in doctor, I put them back together and trace the history, of a theological question, right? So, yeah, it's really fun. Sorry, these are really slippery. Okay, so I wanted to also let our listeners, viewers know that what you're doing with your you can give me a little more detail on your course, but you just mentioned your newsletter, and I think that that's kind of a genius way of sharing your knowledge and your research, but in a very measured approach. So you're not overwhelming the folks who are on your newsletter list but that one question, and it's only every other week, I think, right? You don't even do it
Twice a
weekly.
month, twice a
Yeah.
month. I also write for Bible.org once a month. So I've got 3 deadlines
Uh-huh.
a month. So that's good for
That
me.
that does keep you going. Deadlines will actually make you write
That's
and
right.
do the work. I hear that. So yeah, so I would encourage everyone who's interested in this sort of topic, like specific to women in leadership, or even just women in history, right?
Mhm.
To subscribe to Cynthia's email. I'll have all that. You'll see it in the notes below. But in the meantime, give us, you mentioned your course, so give us
Mhm.
a little more detail on this is a course that you created. Now, of course, the vision of it came before your program, but through the program, it really refined what you knew, gave you the tools to do it, and then kind of set you off on this journey so far. That it's been 5 years now. That, and of
Yeah.
course, if you graduate in 2022, it's only
Mhm.
26. So you started this program before you graduated.
I launched it in 2021 because I
Yeah.
had to test it before I could write my dissertation. So I had to build it.
Okay.
I had to build it and test it, and by God's grace, I got 30 students, which for
Mhm.
a new online course is actually unheard of. So it's a total God thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, men and women. I had a good extrapolation of different church backgrounds. I
Mhm.
had some different ethnicities, 3 international students, and so it was really great for from a testing standpoint. And also, it's an online course, so it's self-paced. So
Okay.
anyone can enroll in it and then take it at their pace. But I
Mhm.
do offer I offer live Zoom Q&A calls to kind of help people move through the program and to be
Okay.
available, because dialoguing in community is so
Mhm.
important in this
Yeah.
topic. And so I pose myself as not the teacher, because the Holy Spirit is our teacher.
Mhm.
It's so important in this particular topic that that we're relying on the Holy Spirit as we study God's word. So I pose myself as the educational guide, right? I've
Okay.
provided all the important pieces, and we don't just look at the what they call the problem passages. We look
Mhm.
from Genesis to Revelation. What is
Mhm.
God saying about women? And then we look at the major arguments. So I will, in my videos, raise the theological points, the questions you need to be considering, the particular interpretations of a few of the important Greek words that all
Mhm.
Bible and translation is interpretation. So there's interpretation built in. We talk about how translations are made, and look at committees. We look at church fathers. What are some significant church council decisions in history about women? And then Jesus, like, we look at Jesus with women, then we kind of brush that aside, and we're all focused on Paul and his maybe 3 things that he says.
Mhm.
And yet how Jesus treated women, elevated them, and all the things, we look at that in depth. And then what did Paul call his coworkers? Female? Was it different from the
Mhm.
male? And spoiler alert, no.
Right.
And then we look at history. We look at women. We do a flyover of history from the early church, from Bible to early church, all the way through, really past the Reformation, because that's a significant point too. And so we get the Bible, we get the theology, we get the history, and I have the reading. So the videos are just highlighting the important issues, asking the questions, sifting a tiny bit, but it's in the reading where you're listening to the scholars, how they build their arguments. And that's the value of the Zoom calls, as we can then process some of that,
Gotcha. Okay.
and then at the end, so my results from my testing of the course was that I told you already, they couldn't tell what my view was. And so I was a neutral guide there. And then in the pre and post, there was a huge needle moving of what they felt women could do at the end of the course versus
Mhm.
where they started. And so that was my ultimate secret
Mhm.
goal. Let's move
Mhm.
the needle for women to whatever
Yeah.
limit you feel. And I guess the most beautiful thing I think about this whole thing is that God has been bringing me lots of ministry leaders. And,
Good.
they have such influence, right? And they
Yeah.
need to be grounded in what they believe. And that was the whole thing at
Yeah.
the very beginning, like ministry leaders need to have looked at this
Yeah.
themselves and
Right.
speak from their understanding of and how much God values his daughters. He values his daughter just as much as his sons.
Yes, and that, I think will come as news to some people. Yeah, sadly, that's a new thought for some. Yeah, I have great respect for people who are willing to, uh, re-engage the topic instead of relying on the way they were brought up or their favorite professor taught them that 20 years ago, blah, 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 and who are like, "No, this is enough of a question in our culture and in the churches today that I would need to investigate it myself before I begin leading a church or a ministry a certain way,
Right.
and not just assume either one. So kudos to you for pulling this all together and doing the hard work to create a resource for people. And I think that's the whole goal of a DMin degree is to provide a resource to answer a question, to help
Mhm.
solve a problem, not necessarily, like you said, to make somebody think a certain way, but to solve the problem of education for you
Right.
of let's put this all in the hands of people so that they can figure it out for
Right.
themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and if complementarian leaders take a course like this, and they never get to become egalitarian, but they've moved. Of course, we know that it's a whole spectrum
Right.
of from super restrictive to there's only one or two things that they feel the spirit
Right.
restricts. There's a whole spectrum there, so maybe they move the needle a little bit, that
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
thing. So
Yes.
yeah, so there's I don't think the goal here, or there's no secret goal of everybody's egalitarian,
Right. And for
Yeah.
the record, I
Mhm.
do not consider myself an egalitarian. I'm
Mhm.
definitely not a complementarian, but I have my own category I called reconciled oneness. We
Can
are
you define that for me?
So we are reconciled by Christ to one another. And so
Mhm.
when the veil was ripped,
Mhm.
it was ripped for all, right? We all have access and we're all empowered by the Spirit who
Mhm.
gives the gifts. And so those are the complementarian, egalitarian, no shade on anybody who calls themselves that based on what they believe, but that's a man made box. That's a
Mhm.
contemporary man made
Yes.
boxes. And
Yeah.
I really don't like boxes.
Yeah, they're not very helpful, as obviously anyone who's read our book knows we don't like those terms either.
Right.
So,
Heterarch and hierarch. Yes.
right.
Yes.
They're just as flawed, I'm sure. Like,
Well,
we're
but
doing the best we
it's
can.
a way to classify, and that's important. But when
Mhm.
it comes to a personal belief system,
Yeah,
you know, I I don't put myself in that
yeah,
kind of a box because my view is it's a complicated conversation. It
it
involves
is.
all the theologies literally
Yeah,
wrapped up in one,
yeah,
and it affects what you believe about every relationship you have. It really does, and so
it's
it's
true.
important. Yeah.
Mhm. So what would you tell, a prospective student who is just looking to go into that doctoral level and they're looking at a DMin specifically?
Yes.
Think about, a younger woman, or you know what? You were in your 50s when you did this. Maybe
Mhm.
speak to someone who's in our age
Right.
bracket
Yes,
and just
yes.
say, who think, "Well, maybe I'm just too old. What's the point?" Or yeah, talk to us about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so, for me, there was this burning, this thing had been germinating for a little while, and so I mentor, I do, organic mentoring, discipling. I hop on calls with women who contact me through social media, or I'll reach
Mhm,
out and say, "Hey, let's hop on a call. I'll be happy to talk with you." And so I've had this conversation with a number of women, and what I say is, look for the intersection. If you're feeling called, but you don't know what it's gonna look like, look for the intersection of your gifts and something that you feel the Lord's calling you to, but also that topic that you just don't think you'll ever know enough about it. Like it is
mhm,
just a passion because what happens with, as you know, with a doctor of ministry, whatever your topic is, that's who's going to ask you to, they're going to ask you to speak about that, and they're going to ask you to write about that. And they want you, have you read the latest book on this, and what do you think about Preston Sprinkle? And, here's a man writing about the topic, and everybody's going crazy, and it's like, women have been writing about this for forever, like, that sort of thing. No shade on Preston Sprinkle, go for it, dude. But, I love that men are supporting women and all that. But so that intersection, I think, is so important, because if you pick a topic and you get bored with it, and because you're literally going to be the expert in that area, or you're expected to be, and so you don't want to get tired of it.
You don't want to get bored. So A, go for it. B, think about what it is that God has on your brain all the time. Yeah, and what you feel like needs more time and research and work in, that you either just want to know more yourself, or you want to answer that question. And then if you've answered it for yourself, you're going to answer for other people. There's other people out there asking the same question, whether you think so or not.
Because ultimately we are called to serve, right? So this is my heart, to serve women who are in circles and they're starting to question their very value, right? It comes right down to their value. That was what was threatened for me. Like, does God love me less? And I had internalized that. I literally had not realized that I had internalized it. So, and that's heartbreaking. And I don't want women to believe that. So,
right. Okay. Yeah, me neither. Yeah, just on that specific topic. But yeah, gosh. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the whole degree. Lots of schools offer it, and so it's not hinged on just my experience. So that's why I'm glad to have you tell us a little bit about yours at Dallas. Obviously, they are a complementarian school, which we've known that since day one, decades ago. But they are very open to women in the program, and they've got this DMin and other doctoral programs that are plenty of women are in. We even know some PhD grads out of Dallas who are professors now, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, and I will put more information about the theology of women. Is it a course? Is that what you call it? Theology of
It's an
Women
online course. Yes, it's
Okay.
an online course. There's 20 lessons, it's divided into 6 modules, and it's a self-paced.
Okay. Yes. So, and if you get on Cynthia's email list, you will hear about when enrollment opens twice a year, and get more information that way. So, any last words?
Thank you so much. I think this is important to encourage women to pursue, upper level education there are scholarships available. There's grants. Don't let the money stand in your way. Of this one particular female that I've been encouraging, she is a teacher, and she's been saving for 7 years, and she knows she's supposed to go, and she just got accepted to Dallas Theological Seminary. And they're giving her some scholarship money as well, and God has made a way. And so
good. I love it. Yes, there's resources out there. Awesome. Well, thanks, Cynthia. It was so great to see you again, and to hear all about your ministry. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care.